So context is everything in Power BI, isn't it? It's all about getting that context right, getting those transitions of context correct as well. But contextually, we have to remember, how is the audience perceiving things? Is our report being taken in context or out of context? And how can we make sure that we shape that narrative so that our customers understand exactly what is actually being said by a visual set, and understand that the meaning of the report is consistent so that everyone is looking at the report and seeing the same thing? Are we shaping the right narrative for our customers? Hi, my name's Ross, the creator and founder of Geordie Consulting and Geordie Intelligence, the YouTube channel you're watching today. One of the things we need to understand, isn't it, is around the context that people are going to perceive our data in, and making sure that the narratives that we're providing to our customers are consistent and are actually going to deliver the insights that we want them to deliver. So if we look at this page here for our North Tyneside report, we've got a great example straight off the bat. If we look at this chart here, okay? So we are showing this as a cumulative, so that annually we can see cumulatively how many people have completed, how many events have been completed. Well, let's try and rephrase that. And this is where the complexity comes through. So obviously an event will be completed by so many people each week, but there's nothing to stop the same person coming to repeat and run every day of every event in a year, for example. So we're going to double count this. We know this. This is going to contain the same person multiple times. But the key thing is what we're saying is across the year, how many people have done it. We could put in a distinct count as well, so we could do stuff like that. But the point of this is that cumulatively in this area, we can see cumulatively what's happened. If we hover over here, we get this distinct count as well, where it tells us the distinct count of participants across everything and across all the events, as well as showing us a breakdown of those events over time. So we can get a lot of information out from these reports and from the way they show it. But the question would always be making sure that that message is clear and that there's an easy way for people to understand and that that context flows. So it's not a case of saying, for example, in this, that Whitley Bay has a lot more than Rising Sun, even though we can see that it's having more. But the issue that we see from here is that it's the way it looks, as I say, is the problem, isn't it? So these two, which are very similar, it looks like kind of it's double the value, but actually it's a cumulative. So is this necessarily the best way of doing it? Should we go with a step view? Should we go with a column like we have here? Is probably a better way of looking at it. So it's more of a mindset. So we've got something there. We can try that, can't we? So let's change that. So we're going to change this to be, what did I say? Go with stat combo. Okay, and straight away we can see this does provide a better view of what's actually happened, don't we? We can see it makes it clear as to what the total volume is across those periods for that. But we need to think, as I say, context. So what I wanted to look at with this was if we say pick Whitley Bay and then we say, right, let's go through to Whitley Bay. What can we do with that? So what I've done here is I've put in kind of a bit of a control chart style of things for it. So I've used the traditional control chart view here with 2 standard deviations away from average. Potentially, as I say, I'm not necessarily a big fan. I think for a lot of these, 1 is probably the right way to go. And I think there's still more work we need to do to tweak these. But I thought, let's have a look and see where we are now with this measure. And then we can talk about what we do and how you could tweak those if you so desired in the future. Okay? So the first thing that we need to do, zoom out of this, okay, is we need to define an average. Okay, so I'm going to do, let's go to a new measure. Okay, it's going to be our control chart. Mean equals, so going to be average X, open brackets. Oh, let me zoom in on this. This is probably, I cannot see half of that. Okay, average X, going to be events, or is it, yeah, events, and then we can do, is it going to be events? Yeah. And then we will do registered finishes. Okay. So what we're saying is, for each event, give us the registered finishes for it. Right? But I think what we need to do as well, because we want this to be an overall, don't we? Let's switch this to a calculate. And then this is going to be all selected. Oh, I should really put this on a different line, shouldn't I? Okay, so let me do these properly so that it makes it easier to read. Okay. So we end up with this control chart mean. All right. Create. Yeah. Let's bring that onto the chart here. Oh, put it in the wrong place. Let's put it on here. Okay, and you can see it's gone right in the middle. It's a beautiful yellow color, so it's really difficult to read. But we've got now our mean that we want. So the next thing we need to do is to work out what the standard deviation would be. Okay. So let's do, right click here, new measure. What's going on? That's control chart, SD equals ST dev P. Actually, no, we're going to do dev XP. Okay, so we're going to actually do a reg, an X function on it. Yeah, I know what I'm trying to say. Okay, and that's going to be on the events. Do the same registered finishes. And then we're going to have all selected events. Okay. What we'll see is this will be a number. So I'll bring this onto the chart, but it won't really make sense to be on the chart. We wouldn't leave it on the chart. Okay. So it's gone 111. So I put it on the chart. Let me just remove this. Okay. Let's make these, now we can make these big. Zoom in a bit, can't we? There we go. Okay. So we've got 314 and 366. Yeah. So what I'm going to do actually, let's move these to a different page. We'll get that and we'll get that. Control C, let's go to a new page just so that there's not all the clutter around there. Okay. So we've got that. And then we can, let's call out the values. Let's make those bigger. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So what we can do next is we're going to actually say, right, let's bring in the upper and lower bound. So the way you would typically do this is you would say, for a new measure, let's go right, control chart upper equals. Okay. So we would typically say control chart mean plus. And this is then where the question starts. So from a typical control chart, you would put in control chart SD multiplied by 2. Okay, depends on what you're doing, is what I would say. So this was for a standard deviation. So the way I would describe a standard deviation, if you're really not sure, is it's kind of the average of how far away from the average is the average of the rest, as it were. Okay, so what's your banding is what it gives you. So it gives you a band of performance like we can see here. The question is always, how far do you go? You could go with 1, you could go with 2. So for the sake of this, let's go back to just 1. So we're going to add it to here. Okay, and we can then show it on this chart here. Okay, and we can see it's in the middle, and then we can go in and we can say, right, we're going to add in a new measure, control chart lower equals control chart mean minus control chart SD. Okay. And we've got then that there. And then lastly, obviously, we can put both of these onto here as well, just so you can kind of see where they're coming out. We could set these to make sure these were always whole numbers, sorry, as well. Okay. But what you end up with is kind of getting to this mindset of saying, right, we now have a banding. We go back to our event tracker. Here we go. We have a band, don't we, where we can say, right, this is what normal, in inverted commas, looks like. Okay, so we have a window that we would expect our performance or our event participation to be in. So we can clearly see for any future event or for any event in the past, was it in band or out of band? Or as if you're using proper control chart parlance, it's in control or it's out of control. I really don't like that in terms of a data analytics perspective. When we go into a boardroom and saying our values are out of control, always goes wrong. It's out of band, where I would say. Okay, this one is obviously on the 2 that we had, but we could bring this through to the ones that we've just written quite easily. So control chart upper and control chart lower. I think we'll have to change the color again, but that's fine. Okay, so we get a tighter banding there, don't we? You can see which one's right, which one's wrong. You can decide. As I say, for a lot of this, if you imagined as well for your retail perspective in terms of what our daily sales was like, would you want quite a tight, this is where we would expect our numbers to be versus the 2 times standard deviation? I think the reality is there's not a right answer to this. It's what works for you. But what the important thing is for you to think about is that it's clear there is a change in the way that this is presented. Suddenly, more context is applied. So we can see, oh, these are higher than we would expect. These are lower. We can see based on the way this is that the numbers have increased over time, which leads to another question. Should we be then modifying this? So it's based on something? Do we want to base it on like the last period or the last whatever, or is it right for it to be across the whole period? The thing to remember as well, because the way we've got it is in terms of the all selected, is that if we went through, and let's go back to our new page just so it's easier here, and we put year in, it's just as important to check this, isn't it? And I make that into a slicer, Whitley Bay, okay, we can see it picks up, it comes down, okay. So we can see there's things that we could still do to further tweak these. Like definitely we don't want it going all the way across. We want it kind of picking like an all selectors where we should be. We shouldn't be showing values that have nothing. So there's work to still be done. But the point that I wanted to make before we go through and we do the rest for this point was you've now seen again how we build the control chart. And you can see that it does push a lot of context into your data set. It makes it much easier for people to go, right, I understand what is happening now. And that's really key to make your whole consumption of your report content easier for the audience. So what do you reckon then? In terms of building control charts, they are one of those things. They are really useful because everyone can understand very quickly and easily the context of the data. You can see because those lines are there, because those lines are not rigid, they are dynamic, they will move as things change in your data set. You can see what's happening. In terms of what we've built, we can see that over time there's been an increase. It becomes really obvious because you see, like on the left-hand side of the chart, that you've got far lower values compared to on the right-hand side in terms of that, yes, we've now got that. We do have the oddity that, in 2020, 2021, there was a bit of an issue and parkrun kind of was suspended for a while. I don't know if you're aware. That drops things, that would have affected it. Is that still the right way to go? Or should we be basing everything on like the last 12 months, or is this still the right way? And I'm kind of not really sure. And I think this is where the reality would always be for a lot of businesses as well. When you go through and you do this, there is not a right answer to this. There is one that is related to your business, and that's going to be what's right for you is what's right. And this is a prime example. Okay. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you thought, oh yeah, great chance to see some DAX being written and to write some of my own. I hope you've been inspired. Let me know down below what you've done, or if you think we should say, let's just filter this to, like, say, the last 12 and base everything on the last 12 events that have been. I don't know. We need to be aware, don't we, of, in terms of, as we saw, we got multiple events because these are showing event number. Is that going to work well for us? Or should we be switching this chart to show date and go with a date value for it? Again, not necessarily a right answer, not necessarily a wrong one. It depends on the context that the visual needs to be. And then obviously I've got to fix that column chart to make sure that that's actually going to show the right thing for us. If you like what you've seen, get in touch, okay? Display the QR code somewhere, book a meeting, or of course you can click a link in the description down below. Book a meeting with Geordie Consulting. They are our consulting partner, and they will help bring your data projects to the next level for you and your business. For now though, stay safe, take care.